It's Saturday. You're on the John's Comics with Kids channel. Bearded Comic Bro is here. That must mean it is time for drinks. It's time for movies. Greg, how are you doing tonight, man?
I am doing so good because it's Saturday night. We're back. We're talking movies. And dude, we're paying some tribute to Sean Connery tonight. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. So I'm so excited for this episode. And
we got a special guest here. We got Mike from the Downright Nerdy Podcast with us.
Hey, thanks guys for having me on. I'm enjoying and getting jealous that you guys are always having fun watching awesome movies and drinking cool. Well, I don't really drink, but I'm always having something to sip on with you guys.
And if you guys don't know the Downright Nerdy Podcast, Mike and Riley are awesome. He is doing Downright Annoyed with Movies every week again. They did the Green Mile tonight. You can catch that live stream on the link in his channel that I put in the description down below. So if you like good movie talk, you know that you're going to find it over there at the Downright Nerdy Podcast. He's in the process of moving, so hopefully when things get a little more streamlined over there, the content's going to be back to rocking and rolling, because I know that the girls and I loved watching their podcast videos every weekend when they were dropping them consistently, because they just loved it. Thought it was hilarious.
Thank you so much. And yeah, hopefully we'll be starting to get rocking and rolling as soon as possible.
That'd be awesome to hear, for sure. So for those that don't know, for the month of November and December, lots of holiday things, we're trying to do a little bit of a different format. We're looking at 2020 and some of the great actors, actresses, filmmakers that we might have lost in that time period that we can then sort of do a little retrospective for. And Greg was right on the money saying we should kick it off with Sean Connery, because I think he's on everybody's minds. So for the whole month, we're going to be doing these kinds of retrospectives. And at the end of the show tonight, we will run you down 3 other choices that we know for sure we will be doing. We haven't finalized the list completely, but we know of 3 that we'll guarantee the locks that we're going to discuss. And if you want to join us for one of those 3 in the future, you can leave a comment. Hit us on Instagram. Let us know, because we're happy to have people join us. That's how Mike got here.
Yeah, he literally did it in the comments as we were talking. We're like, we're talking Sean Connery. And Mike was like,
drop me in. If it's the same time every week, let me in.
So this is Drinks and Movies. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're drinking tonight. I picked up this Buffalo Trace last weekend. My first time trying it out. A very simple, good, everyday whiskey, bourbon whiskey. So I've been enjoying that. So I got a little tumbler of that. Greg, what are you drinking tonight, man?
So, I always got to bring something unique. So tonight, we went with a Boulevard Brewing Company combined with Rheingeist, which is in Cincinnati. And it is called the Crustfall. It is a peach berry pie sour.
Crustfall, that's hilarious. I love the name.
So honestly, beer cans are about as cool as variant covers sometimes. You just the artwork on it's fantastic. And I think whoever designs it are really that's some awesome stuff. So I'm having that. I like my sour, and then if it finishes off, I've always got the little bit of whiskey for the nightcap.
And Michael, you don't need to be drinking alcohol, but I know you're sipping on a little something. What are you enjoying there?
Yeah. So for those non-alcoholic drinkers, I have myself a Soleil. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but it's a little blood orange type of sparkly drink that Riley got me. Riley will probably want to jump in with the drink later. Yeah.
Soleil, French for sun. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah.
But you know that I can't drink and not eat at the same time. So I had Riley pick me up a little fun little something here. So
did not, you son of a gun.
Son of a gun.
So if you see me doing this every couple seconds, that means I might be having a bite. Don't want to be too gross on your channel.
That's a late night snack right there. You're doing a late night snack there. I love it. We have an In-N-Out close to us, but every time you talk In-N-Out, I start thinking we need to cruise by and hit it.
See, out here in Ohio, I have all the people are like, "Oh, Five Guys," and we just got a Shake Shack, and everyone's like, "Shake Shack," and y'all are missing the In-N-Out. Don't be sleeping on In-N-Out.
I don't hate on burgers in general. I do love me some Five Guys burgers and fries. That's some good eats. But In-N-Out, yeah, you grew up in Southern California or California in general. In-N-Out's where it's at.
That's the jam.
So let's say hello to the chat. We had some people hanging out, tailgating. Poor Mike, number one in the chat. He says, Mike, poor Mike. He's worried about us. I'm worried about you, buddy. Hope you're doing all right. Just a Rican in his comics, he just dropped a little look ahead at DC in January. All the books that DC is dropping in the month of January. He did this crazy, I was calling it trippy cool video where it was like covers and music floating by. And it was like, I was tripping out, but it did let me know I was planning on skipping this whole future state thing that DC is doing. Then I realized that my girl, the new Green Lantern, Joe from Far Sector, is going to be a big part of that. She's part of the Green Lantern thing. She's part of the Justice League. So I'm like, okay, now I got to read some of these because she's cool. I'm hoping they do cool stuff with her. So thanks, Rod, for letting me know. Hello, Kevin from 1-2 Comic Talk, another California homie. We got Fuchsia in the chat. Hello, Fuchsia. We got Mike. He's here and he's there. He's everywhere.
Inception.
Fire guy Ryan back on the West Coast again. Good to have you back, sir. How are you doing? We got to get you in here for one of these shows, bro. Coach Vic, one of the original guests for this program. Thank you for coming by, Vic. Ryan says, just got done talking video games with Bearded. Had to jump over here. There you go. Even though I've seen very small amount of his movies, y'all better mention Untouchables. Well, he did win the Oscar for that, so I kind of feel like it's going to come up.
His only Oscar.
Right? Don't get me started on Green Mile. Uh-oh. We won't. We will not. He's not in it. But you can enjoy your Arnold Palmer. That is one of my favorite non-alcoholic.
Oh, I love those. Good call.
Arnold Palmer's all day.
Smart man right there.
And it's a smart move to be drinking it during the Masters weekend.
Right?
So, I mean, well played, Coach Vic.
Perry is here, and he's given how to make a good old-fashioned advice in the chat there, saying that that's a good mixture for old-fashioned. So there you go. Beer cans and comic variants appeal to the same market. There you go.
See?
TJ says Zardos better be on the list for a most amazing costume ever worn by Sean Connery. Then yes. The ponytail combined with the thong, it's all just this amazing visual. But I'm just going to let you have it. There you go, buddy. Eat slowly, please. He doesn't want you to choke. He's watching out for you. No, there's no In-N-Out in Michigan. No In-N-Out in Michigan or in Florida. So you guys are just going to have to survive for a little while longer.
It's tough.
Poor souls.
So thank you all for joining us for this discussion for an actor that I think has had a huge impact on film over the last, 50 years. My first question, I'm just going to run around the chat. I'm really curious. What was your first memory of a movie with Sean Connery? What was that first time you saw a movie and were like, that was my first Sean Connery movie that I remember? So, Greg, what was it for you? What was that first movie?
So, this is going to, we're just going to jump right in. So, one of my first movies that I remember as a kid seeing was this beautiful DVD right here. First Night. My first exposure to Sean Connery as a kid was First Night because it came out, I think, in 1995. So I was a wee little.
You're saying you peaked, is what you're saying. You started with high level, and there was nowhere to go but down.
So while we're out on First Night, we might as well just hop into it because the reason it was one of my first memories is because we were talking off screen how it's so ironic that Richard Gere's in it, and he's like the suave, He's supposed to be like
he's the sex symbol.
Yeah, he's the sex symbol, right? And we're like, who thinks that? Well, my mom did, and she watched that movie nonstop, and because of that, as a 10-year-old kid, I got to watch. Like my first exposure of King Arthur. Like this is also probably my first exposure to the myth of King Arthur. Was an old Sean Connery as King Arthur.
That's hilarious.
So,
well, ironically, my mom got me into Sean Connery, but the Dr. No side. and because she thought that he looked so beautiful in that nice tux. So that's how I started getting into it.
It wasn't the terry cloth onesie that he wore by the pool. That wasn't the one.
I think it was more the short shorts at the pool.
Gotcha.
In the ocean, maybe.
Because he had some great Bond costumes that we'll have to get.
Oh, yeah.
So then your first exposure to Sean Connery was as Bond.
As Bond, Dr. No.
Damn.
Yep.
That's like now. That I was joking about high watermark, but you did hit a high watermark.
You actually did.
Oh yeah. And actually, I think after that, I only saw Sean Connery as Bond for a few years until Robin Hood. I got was introduced to me. Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, the Prince of
Thieves. He was in there for
like
5 seconds.
He was in there for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, at the very end.
5 seconds, but it was probably one.
I thought he wasn't in Time Bandits very long. Holy buckets, he's not in.
No, he's not in that
He's
one.
not in Robin Hood. You said, who was it? I think it was Geek when he was originally going to be on the show. He was like, oh man, how did you not mention Robin Hood? I'm like, because he's in it for literally 3 seconds.
In fact, I rewatched Highlander, and he's hardly in that too. He's got a very small amount of screen time in Highlander as well, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Because this is what I thought you were saying when you saw Robin Hood, because he played Robin Hood in Robin and Marion with Audrey Hepburn. Mm-hmm. And I do really love that movie. We'll get to that one at first, but that's a great pick too, Gore. And I saw Glitter and Duct Tape is here. Hey, Crystal, how you doing? She says mine were the Bond films too. Look at that. Mm-hmm. Hello to Kachung. Good to see you here. Let's see. Never Say Never Again. So you hit the low water mark for the Bond films. That's harsh. And then Shalako before that, but didn't know him by name by then. Okay. Woo. But see, that was one of the things that I wanted to mention off the bat for me was my first Bond was Roger Moore. So that was the first Bond I saw because he was playing Bond at the time when I was going to movies. So I didn't get Connery Bond until later. My first appearances from Bond, my first Connery movies were when he had moved into the Highlander role of being the mentor Jedi master teaching the new cool hero thing. Like he had that phase in his career where he was playing the guy teaching the new guy, and that's when I knew him. That's how I saw Connery for the first time. Some of those kind of movies, because he did it a ton. Highlander, Indiana Jones, Untouchables. I mean, they're all roles where he's trying to teach the new guy, Yep. Okay. So we got to start with Bond. I think I feel like there's no place to go, but to start with the fact that he is, in most people's minds, at least, James Bond, and always kind of will be James Bond. Do you guys have a preference for who is your favorite Bond? Is it Connery, Greg?
He's who I think of the most when I think of Bond. Let me say that. I have more. I grew up in the Pierce Brosnan age, and I'm not going to say Pierce Brosnan is a better Bond. I have more of a nostalgic, connection to those movies of GoldenEye, because those were the Bond movies I saw in theaters and, playing the game and things like that. I also like Daniel Craig, but for me, when I think of Bond, the first person I think of is Sean Connery. I actually didn't get to tap into too much of the Dalton or the Roger Moore, and then who's the one who was in like 2, Lansbury or
Lansbury. No, it's oh crud! Now I've lost. It's out my brain.
I can't remember now. I mean, the point is though. I mean, it took. I don't know why it took you so long to really think about that. I know that you grew up in Pierce Brosnan, like you said, but Sean Connery is Bond. He's the Bond, and he's everybody's Bond. And he sets precedent for all future Bonds. So, I mean, for me, there's no question of who the best Bond is. I guess with the Daniel Craig is probably the more not realistic, but the most like to date Bond. Because I feel like with every decade, the Bonds change with the times as best as they can, I think. Right. But yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, he laid the foundation for what's this 26 Bonds now, something like that.
Yeah. And I will say, I think I agree with both of what you guys are saying. As far as when I picture Bond in my head, it's Connery. I think it's hard to avoid that. Even though he's supposed to be British, but he's Scottish. You know, we're going to let all that go. The fact that they really haven't often had a strictly British actor play Bond, I think it's always been, they've always skirted the line a little bit. I picture him, but I will say it's because he left this indelible stamp on the role. You know, the way he delivered lines, like, you know, just saying his name. You know, the way he would say his name. I think people try to imitate that in every film following on. I think that like Mike is saying too, those films shift for the era. I think Craig might make the best action films, but that wasn't necessarily what the Bond films were when they originally started. They were definitely more spy films and not action films, and they've evolved. And so if I'm going to watch one for entertainment, I might pick, you know, Casino Royale just to see cool action. Right. But if I'm watching one for the nostalgia of Bond, I'm going to watch Goldfinger or something like that, because it's more the espionage genre and what Bond sort of is at its core for me.
Well, it makes sense. And it makes sense why I think a lot of us, and I think most, I don't know, maybe not most, a lot of people think that, right? Like when you think of Bond, you think of Sean Connery, but it might not be your favorite for some of those reasons, like you said, John, of like action. But also, I think with the idea of spy movies, they're so dated. I mean, you even look at, because I was rewatching some of the Brosnan ones from, Netflix, and those are like, you look at that, you're like, wow, the tech is like so like, and it's so dated. And I think that's the same thing, right, with the Connery Bonds, like, you know, even like the timepiece of where it was set up in, you know, of the, you know, even the relationship between Bond and the females, or the relationship of, you know, the spy tech. I think it kind of dates itself, where right now the Daniel Craig movies are kind of more like, we don't feel as dated because they're current right now to us, I think. And so It makes it easier to say like, oh, as an action film or something like that. I think that kind of plays into it too.
Versus in 20 years, we might look at the current Bond and feel like it's supremely dated as well, right?
Right.
Within its own time frame, it might have a certain error. I mean, because you look at the way, I mean, it is super awkward. I mean, my daughters are big Bond fans right now. They've mainly just watched GoldenEye and the Connery films. That's pretty much all they've seen. But there are plenty of awkward moments watching those movies with daughters, because you're seeing like 60 years have passed, and the way he just like meets some girl and slaps her on the butt and starts kissing her, and you're just like, what is happening? Every woman exists either
that
for him
doesn't happen, and if it does, you tell me.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Every woman either exists for him to kill them or to kiss them, and that's pretty much the only function of women in those movies, at least his films. But it doesn't. And for me, it's you place it in its era, and you understand the time. So then let's get to this question: what is the best Connery Bond film? I'm gonna go to Mike first this time. So which of the Connery films is the best one for you?
Thunderball. I think Thunderball would probably be up there, followed closely by Goldfinger.
Goldfinger.
Yeah, Goldfinger. And then after that, Dr. No, Diamonds Are Forever, You Only Live Twice.
He's already got. Look, he's ranked. He's ranked.
I'm missing one.
From Russia with Love.
For me, Bond.
From Russia with Love is underrated.
From Russia with Love is number. I'm sorry. From Russia with Love is right after Dr. No. That's number 4.
Okay, good. Yeah,
I like that one a lot
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Bond for me, I mean, he was my action hero when I was real young, right? So I mean, that was actually the first spy action movie I'd ever seen. I think that was the first movie I ever seen with a gun in it, to be honest with you. And hell, my first legal drink as an adult was a vodka martini, shaken not stirred, because I just wanted to order one, you know, and it was terrible. I feel like I don't remember much of that night, but it was still delicious. I mean, it wasn't that delicious. It was still part of my childhood that I always wanted to like go somewhere and order that, you know.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But yeah, so that's kind of my ranking of the Bond Connery films.
All right. Then, Greg, what would you pick as the best Connery Bond film?
I mean, it would probably be a toss up between Goldfinger and Dr. No for me as my favorite. I did just rewatch From Russia with Love because it was on Hulu, and I do enjoy it. It's funny. It takes I think it takes place 30, probably 50% of the movie on a train,
right?
But it's enjoyable. But I think it might be Dr. No up there for me. That or Goldfinger. One of those two.
I love that people in the chat are listing some of their favorites, but I wanted to go to this Gore Vidal comment about how the Cold War was the backdrop for all the Bond films up to Roger Moore, and he's saying he enjoyed that dynamic, which is a big part of the novels as well as those early films. That having a clear enemy for the spy games made it a pretty simple breakdown overall. He says he likes From Russia with Love. It was JFK's favorite. I did not know that. David Niven was the best Bond. Come on, TJ. We're playing with the big kids now. We can't mess this up.
It'd be kind of interesting if you really kind of think about it. You could probably even say that one of his later films was one of the better Bond films too, The Rock. You heard that? Have you heard that theory? Where he was actually that theory where that wasn't his real name in the movie, and that it was actually James Bond that the CIA imprisoned at Alcatraz.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's a great theory. It's a wonderful little offshoot. It's perfect for sure.
It fills a lot of holes, which is kind of neat.
Kachung agrees with you completely. Thunderball, Dr. No, From Russia with Love after that. Thunderball, Glitter and Duct Tape. Boom.
Man.
The music from Russia with Love sticks with you. I do agree the music's pretty awesome. And I do love Robert Shaw as the assassin. He fights in the train, the blonde-haired assassin. He's really cool.
I gotta say, I love the music.
That's a good one too, yeah.
The music intro for all Bond films across the board are just so incredible. I love how they just get whoever, the top person who's a singer or whatever in the era to do the intro, and I love that.
Sure. Rod, you're here. I'm glad you're awake and hanging out with us, man. Thanks for joining us. And I'm with Carlito. I still have a big soft spot for Goldfinger, and it's probably because on rewatch, 60 years later or 50 years later, these Connery films are incredibly campy. They don't intentionally mean to be, I don't think. But Goldfinger is the one that I feel leans into it the most, and therefore is the most perfectly campy. Whether it's the name of Pussy Galore, whether it's the plan to rob Fort Knox with a bunch of women in their crazy airplanes that they're going to gas all the people and then just ride in and then they're going to irradiate the whole plot is just hilarious. His laser that he's going to split Bond in half with, it's so perfectly made for an Austin Powers burn. The whole thing is just wonderfully campy perfection. So I probably will be a Goldfinger guy first, but then like you guys said, From Russia with Love, Dr. No, Thunderball. There was a set of 4 vintage Bond films from Connery that there's no losers in there, right?
Right. You pick any one of those 4 or 5, and you're like, okay, I can't be that upset about it.
Right.
Yep.
So it seems to me one of the things that Connery was popular for in his career was sort of he was an icon of what uber masculinity might have been in that era. Do you get that vibe that he seems like the original guy that was girls want to sleep with him and guys want to be him. That was the Connery motto in some way. Does that ring true to you, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that was the appeal of him. And I do think that is why you see a shift in some of his movies later on in his career where, granted he's older and stuff, but I think he tried to stray away from that as well because that was so much of the focus, I think, for him in the Bond movies.
What about you, Mike?
So Yes, I agree. And I mean, a lot of it too, I think also deals with him on off screen, what he did off screen just a few years before Bond. He placed third in a Mr. Universe competition. He was like heavy into the bodybuilding, keeping, trying to, look as best as he can kind of thing. So he brought that, that image to his Bond. Obviously, you see him a lot of times with his shirt off or whatever, and he's
right.
Obviously very got my mom really excited. So yeah, he definitely brought that. He was attractive not only to his female audience, but he had that charisma that obviously a lot of the male audiences always they kind of gravitated to.
Sure. But I mean, like, yeah, it was handsome, but sure, but he drove the nice car that the guys wanted to have. He looked good in a suit when the guy wanted to look good in the suit. He had the money. He had the cool gadgets. He always got the lady. He could fight and like handle himself in a fight. I feel like it was the perfect like machismo character, and he fit it really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Mike, even his first drink was because of what Sean Connery made famous. Like, I don't even say that as a joke, but that just shows the iconicness of like what you said of guys wanted to be like him to a degree. Like, I want to, my first drink, I want it to be a martini, shaken not stirred. Like, I think there's truth to that.
He was smooth, just like that drink was supposed to be, just smooth, right?
Well, I mean, that's what everything they made. Whenever he'd go into the office and he would do the hat toss on the thing and everything, like he was just the way he handled himself on screen. I think he exuded that kind of presence.
For sure. Totally. Okay, then obviously a lot of actors have played Bond and struggled to maybe have a career outside of that character. He actually was obviously hugely successful outside of that character. Let's get into some of those, like post Bond. He's now he's been able to graduate out into the mainstream. Is there a performance that you think is an underrated, underappreciated Connery movie that people don't talk about enough or don't mention enough?
That's going to be tough for me to say underrated, because I think for most of my exposure with Sean Connery were anything from like late 80s to all the 90 movies. Like, that was most of my exposure with Connery. Like, I had to go back and watch some of the stuff that was in between the 90s and the Bond era to get. So for me, like, to say one of those movies is underrated, like people like Gore or TJ are going to go, underrated? Are you kidding me? Like, the best ones around.
Hey, new guy Ryan is here, and hello, Comic Book Fever. He mentioned one that I think a lot of people might come up with as an underrated, underappreciated Connery film. Do you have one, Mike, that you feel like is an underappreciated gem?
I do. And it was his last movie ever, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which I really enjoyed. And I don't care if anybody says no, but I really liked it. I thought it was a ton of fun.
I'm only doing that face because whenever my wife lists her least favorite movies ever, that movie always is
number one. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
But I mean, she clearly she's no connection to the comics, no connection to anything. She went into a theater and was like, I just want to see a movie, and picked that movie, and has never stopped talking about how much she hates it.
But that's funny, because that's the power of Sean Connery. No matter what he's in, if someone says like, "Oh, Sean Connery's in it," okay, that'll sway somebody to buy a ticket, right? Or
for sure
press that rent button on Amazon because he's in it.
So what'd you like
winner?
about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I'm sorry?
What did you like about The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen for you? What does that movie mean to you?
It doesn't mean much. I just think that it's a movie that gets crapped on a lot because of its structure, the casting, and I'm not even to some extent Sean Connery, but him in that role as what's his name? Alan Quartermain. Yeah. I thought that he did great in that role, but Yeah, a lot of the storyline and okay, whatever. But I still thought that him in that role, I wish I could have seen more of that, maybe with a different director and writer.
Sure.
Well, I have actually, it was on Prime, so it was one of the few Connery movies I did get to restream. And because I remember enjoying it a lot. And I also remember knowing that it gets just crapped on a lot. So I was trying to go in and just say, like, what do I think? I still walked away like, is it a great movie? No. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, I had fun. Like, it was fun. You wouldn't put it up as like his most iconic performance. You could tell he was getting up there, and like the fist fighting that they always had him do was a little like, maybe we toned down having him do that much fist fighting. Like, but as an overall, like, it was fun. And I think like to look at, because I think it was like 2003.
Okay.
The effects were pretty sweet in that movie, from the aspect of like even the ship. You have like when the Invisible Man, the first appearance into that room, like the way they do that with then the putting on the makeup that he does, like it's one of the times I remember like where I see something like that where it actually looks legit. Like I'm like, wow. Now there's also some really rough stuff with the Jekyll and Mr. Hyde character of the CGI, but there were some cool moments, and I think it does get just picked apart a little too much.
Oh, it absolutely gets crapped on, especially in my house. I honestly saw it, and I feel kind of like you guys, where it was like, I was entertained. It wasn't a masterpiece or anything, but I can't voice that opinion around here. They just
so you did not rewatch that on Amazon Prime then?
No, that one did not get a second viewing. Coach Vicks threw out Finding Forrester. I know he's a big fan. I think we've talked about that one, he and I together. Gore Vidal throwing out some Hitchcock with Marnie. Good one.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, he was in a Hitchcock movie.
Well, and that was correct me, like, wasn't that kind of like more of a like picked apart Hitchcock movie too for a while with that one, because it's
not viewed in a high regard.
Because it felt pretty like the story. I know a lot of people complained about the story, that it felt kind of like not congruent. I don't know what the word I'm saying.
Well, I mean, he had just hit with Goldfinger and Dr. No, and then like this movie came out, and I think people were expecting a lot from Connery and Hitchcock, and it just wasn't that.
Right.
I don't know if you could call The Rock underrated.
It's not.
Spectacular.
And we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's not underrated. Yeah, that's just a good movie. Huh?
Outland, I think, is a movie that not a lot of people talk about, like a High Noon in Outer Space, Connery. Like, I think that's a really good pick too, Gore Vidal. I considered that one in a big way. But my movie nobody has picked yet. I just want to get through some more homies in the chat. Russia House. My brothers and I hated that movie when we saw it because we expected, sexy Michelle Pfeiffer and James Bond in a spy movie, and it was boring as heck. And we did not care for that. I don't know how you can call this underrated, but yeah, great movie. Hello, Cookie is here. Good to see you, Cookie. Let's see here. I got October, Bond, and Indiana Jones behind me there. That is definitely not underrated because that is his iconic film. So the movie I'm going to pick for underrated is a tiny little romantic comedy that he did. And he has one of many, there's like lots of performances in the movie. So he's got one of the many ensemble roles that are in the movie. Playing by Heart, I really enjoyed this movie. It's just a simple rom-com that seems to be like 5 or 6 stories happening in the city together. So you have Gillian Anderson with Jon Stewart, meet cute, falling in love. You've got Angelina Jolie breaking up with her boyfriend, Ryan Phillippe. And you've got Madeline Stowe and her relationship with Dennis Quaid. And then you've got Connery and his wife, Gina Rowlands, and they're having a marital dispute. And these stories are kind of intercut between each other, and you're jumping around a little like the film Go, if you've seen Go. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, you realize how all these stories are connected. And that's kind of the fun of the movie, is how they interconnect. Connery has a pretty small role. It's just he and Gina Rowlands, but watching them go through it, they've been married for an incredibly long time. And when she confronts him about a secretary he had long ago that she's always felt jealous of, that was a hottie, and he talks about how he thought about running off with this secretary long ago. it sort of splinters their marriage, and they spend a whole night kind of dealing with it. And he's got to talk to her about it, and she's got to talk about her feelings. But it's just a talky romantic comedy kind of thing. But lots of great talented actors, lots of great performances. In particular, I think the Gillian Anderson and Jon Stewart bit cracks me up to no end. I think they're Scully and Jon Stewart together. I'm down. Like, that was hilarious. So I enjoy Playing by Heart is the name of that movie.
Okay. We'll have to watch it. I haven't seen that. But what, another movie just kind of came to mind. Medicine Man? That wasn't bad. I like that one a lot.
Ponytail. That was another one that that's another one I remember watching that VHS multiple times. I can't remember if I actually thought it was a good movie or not. But
I think that one was on HBO a ton. I felt like I was always catching it on HBO when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I will say I'm not going to say it's underrated because I'm sure people like it because it's talked about as one of his better ones. But I did finally see The Man Who Would Be King recently and thoroughly enjoyed it. And so I think my generation doesn't talk about it because it's not the 90s and it's not a Bond. It's in that kind of time frame. But that is, you've got Michael Caine. You've got Christopher Plummer in it. Like, it's one of those, I felt like it starts slow, but once they get to the kind of the premise of where they're at, it was a lot of fun. And the relationship and the dynamic between Sean Connery and Michael Caine, those are some phenomenal actors. And
they were both at like a peak in their acting careers too.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I think they got along so well is because they're actually great friends in real life too. So they already immediately had that bond and are able to play off each other fairly well. Did someone say Bond?
Well, I haven't seen that movie in quite a long time, and I was very disappointed to find that it's not streaming anywhere. How did you get hold of that sucker?
That was one I rented just because I saw Christopher Plummer, I saw Michael Caine and Sean Connery. I was like, I gotta watch this.
Yeah, because I saw it a long time ago on VHS, and I have not been able to find it since then. So like I've been wanting to see it again, and I wasn't ready to pay for it for this. So I'm sorry I didn't rewatch it.
No, it's all right. It was worth $3.99 rental for sure. I think Gore's right. I think it showcases his acting because it's not in action. He's not trying to be like the suave, like debonair. He's not trying to be the role that he is in the 90s. It's kind of like the old school action star or the kind of leader, like you said. It's really good. I enjoy it.
Did either of you see his TV movie Macbeth?
No.
If you can find that somewhere, give it a watch. I couldn't find it. I wanted to watch it again, but I couldn't find it anywhere. But yeah, Macbeth.
I'm assuming he played Macbeth, right? Who played Lady Macbeth?
Actually, here, let me pull it up. I'll find it for you. He plays Macbeth, and who played?
I got it. I just opened it up. Let's see here.
Zoe
Caldwell.
Yeah,
Zoe Caldwell plays Lady Macbeth.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good adaptation. If you guys can give it a watch, it's if I'm not mistaken, it was in black and white.
Yeah, it is. The pictures I saw were black and white.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay.
That's a great. Thanks for putting that on my radar because I love a good Shakespeare production, and I had a really great high school teacher who was like obsessed with Shakespeare, and I had him two years of high school, and we did like 2-3 plays every year, and I totally found the love for the Bard. So I'd be excited to see Connery in Macbeth. That'd be epic. We have to get to this movie, of course, because it's kind of the pinnacle of his acting career in some ways. Obviously, when it comes to accolades, it is. But for me, it's almost the performance that rivals Bond. Like it for me, it's like right there because the movie is great, but also he has this wonderful. Like I said, he tends to play. His second half of his career was a lot of mentor roles. And this is another one of those great Highlander mentor roles where you know he's probably not going to live to the end of the movie, but he's going to train the new Jedi and then get out of the way. So what are your thoughts on Untouchables, Greg?
Well, we'll let Mike, because I feel like we touched on Untouchables a lot with the gangster movies and organized crime. So let's have Mike, and then we can finish anything that he didn't.
So Untouchables for me is probably my top 5 movies of all time. It's been ever since my dad introduced it to me back probably when did it come out? 87. I think I probably saw it maybe 10 years later for the first time, and I think I've watched it at least once or twice a year since then. He does such a great job at capturing the essence of Chicago policing in that era, I think. And like you said, John, having that mentor role to help Elliot Ness, go after Al Capone and teach him the ways of how things are done in Chicago, right? And the way that every time he's on screen, he just commands the screen, and he's able to just bring everybody up acting wise to a level that I think that a lot of them may not have had before this movie with Sean Connery. And yeah, I mean, it's just the movie itself is just incredible. I would argue flawless in my opinion.
All right, Bearded. Now you got your turn, or do you want me to go?
I mean, I don't have much more to say than what Mike said it so perfectly but there's just moments where like you see even in this where he just throws out that kind of like embodiment of what it is of just cool. Like he's like, he has a gun and he's like, oh, we need someone up here, just chucks the gun, chucks the gun and you're like, that's pretty cool. Like, here, you're with us now. And that I think that's where that kind of translates from how he was in the Bonds to kind of later. Like he's still just, even when he was, I don't know how old he would have been at that 8 time frame, but man, he still was like, you wanted to be someone like, you're like, man, that was sweet. That's cool.
You carry a badge, then carry a gun.
Right?
That's the Chicago way.
Listen, gang, we were 44 minutes in before we got the Sean Connery voice. I was waiting. We had bets going of how long, and I started to get to like, we might not hear it. So I'm glad that
There you go. One of my favorite lines, though. Absolutely. I also love that, like, he is always the one who basically wants to break the law to solve their problems, right? When he takes the dead body and holds him up to the glass and sticks the gun in the guy's mouth and pretends that he's threatening this guy and then shoots the guy, blows his brains out. And it's like, you can't help but admire his tenacity. And then of course his final scenes when the guy's breaking into his apartment and you're like, oh, they're going to get him. They're going to get him. And then he pulls the gun and he's like, you brought a gun, you bring a knife to a gunfight. And he chases the guy out of his house and you're like, oh, okay, he'll be fine. It's Connery. He's going to be fine. And then he gets out to the stairwell and you're like, nope, he's not going to be fine. It's this wonder. De Palma plays with expectations well. And I think Connery suited that perfectly, where he could twist the story in a lot of ways early on and then have it twisted on him in the end. Was really a beautiful piece of filmmaking and acting kind of coming together.
Right.
So I'm a big fan of that film.
It's great.
But I'm a Costner nut, and I've always really liked Costner, even when people were complaining about his horrible accent in Robin Hood and giving me crap about it.
It was great. I loved it.
I was still like, I'm entertained. I was like you guys with, Extraordinary Gentlemen. I was still entertained. I still danced with the cutest girls at all the dances.
And John still loves Waterworld. He talks about it to this day.
I do, and I do. No, but like the Bryan Adams song, I still dance to that. That's my jam. I'm down.
Well, two things real quick.
High slow dances.
Two things real quick with Robin Hood. Sean Connery, we talked a little backstage. He's in it for a good 5.5 seconds, but it was a great 5.5 seconds. And two, I will back you up on Waterworld because the ride at Universal Studios far exceeds the actual movie, but it's still both really cool.
See,
So if any of you guys ever come,
I never got to ride the ride because they didn't have the Waterworld ride in Florida.
Sorry, not a ride. It's like a
the stunt show.
15, yeah, like a show of some sort, like 15-minute show.
It's still in California,
so you come to California. The stunt show then, and
yeah.
I didn't know if they had a ride. Okay, yeah, so they had the stunt show, and I actually was just joking because I assumed John hated it. I actually enjoy Waterworld still.
I do. There's only a few Costner movies that I would legitimately crap on. Postman, but other than that,
I was going to be the one I was going to say if it wasn't Waterworld.
I'm a big Costner fan, and so yeah, I mean, I really love The Untouchables because for me it was like this kickstarting of another part of his career, just like it was for Connery. I think we have some awesome people jumping into the chat. So hello, Johnny5. He says The Rock. So with that crazy long hair, and he gets
yeah.
What's grunge? Time Bandits. Yeah, Patrick Wall, we're almost there, buddy. Although we are talking about bizarre Connery cameos in movies, and Agamemnon might fit into that category a little bit. Let's see. I also missed Patrick Wall, Highlander 1, Best Death, Highlander 2. So there you go. You get both. I rewatched Highlander 1 today, and I had forgotten how little he is in that movie as well. He's got one epic sort of flashback chunk, but he's not in it a ton. I did think it was hilarious that they found a Scot to play a Spaniard or Egyptian, and they found a Frenchman to play a Scot. So very clever, messed up casting there, Highlander. Well played.
But I feel like they had to. Did it?
Yeah, sure.
It's hilarious on rewatch, I will say, and because a couple of times you hear, the Highlander, he's trying to do a Scottish accent, and then you're like, just give it up on it, buddy. It's fine. Just keep going.
And I think he does give up on it.
Yeah, he gives up on it for sure. And hello to the comic book G-Spot, Robert Galvin. Thank you for coming by, man. Much appreciated. Highlander is his favorite. So do you guys want to talk any Highlander? Do you have any love for Highlander? Anything?
I mean, we might as well talk Highlander since the chat brought it up.
We're here now.
They took us here. They led us to the water. I didn't want to have to go into the Highlander talk if we didn't have to.
But now we're here. So go.
How do I say this without everyone in the chat hating me? Highlander is one of the most overrated movies of Sean Connery's career, and y'all need to rewatch it because it's not that good of a movie.
Somebody screen grab.
I remember watching it as a kid, and it's everything that I should like in a movie, right? It's got the Queen opening soundtrack that just goes hard.
And Queen is all the way through this movie,
right? It's got broadswords like that. You're like, yes, this is like what you want. It's got Sean Connery. It's got and I'm sitting here watching it again. I watched it as a kid, and I haven't revisited it until. So I know I'm not the right demographic for it at all. But here's your screen grab. I would rather watch League of Extraordinary Gentlemen over Highlander any day.
Hottest of hot takes.
I don't come in here with pre-made wanting to make hot takes, but I'm watching this and
that's really my role, so I'm excited to take a backseat.
And man, if Geek Aficionado was on the show like he originally was going to, I felt like he was going to fight me when I had to say what I had to say.
There you go. There it is. Entrapment is his worst movie. How dare you bash Highlander? The whole movie soundtrack is done by Queen, so you are more wrong.
No, I said the soundtrack's great, but it doesn't mean
he was very good in Tarzan. It doesn't solve what Greg is saying. You're too young to give you that. I'll give you that.
I am.
All right, so then let's hear from Michael. What are your feels about Highlander?
I have seen Highlander 1 and 2, I think maybe a total of 2 times. And I got to say, I kind of agree with Greg. I kind of agree. I was not impressed. I think also too, there are so many of so many movies of the same kind of genre that I'd much rather there are other better choices for me to watch if I want like a broadsword type of I guess movie or whatever, or a Sean Connery with a ponytail movie, or any Sean Connery movie. I have better options than Highlander.
Oh gosh,
I don't know. It is what it is. I will watch League of Extraordinary Gentlemen before I watch Highlander again. I could pretty much guarantee you that.
I love this, Vincent McLean. That's basically what I said like 5 minutes ago, for sure. The French guy, Highlander, and the Scot played the Spaniard. Although he claims to be Egyptian, I just rewatched it today. He claims I'm Egyptian, which I was like, really? I've never heard of an Egyptian with the last name Ramirez. But we'll get to that a whole other time.
So John, are you going to be the saving grace for Highlander?
I will be the saving grace, although I just wanted to highlight this comment. Without Highlander, Robot Chicken would have no content. And TJ saying Highlander has been watched 25 times, one of his favorite movies, along with Zardoz that he mentioned earlier. I do enjoy Highlander, but I saw it probably at a better time in my life, which would plant a nostalgia seed, maybe a slightly more deeper for me. And I'm probably the oldest of the three here. So in that way, maybe it hit at a better time chronologically for me. It would have been 86. I would have been 9. So, Greg's like, I wasn't alive. So whatever.
I was alive by like a year.
You're a twinkle.
I enjoy it, but I also recognize the ridiculousness of it. You can't go into that movie expecting like reality, like a giant broadsword versus a tiny samurai sword. There's no logic to any of that. A sword that like comes apart into pieces and yet still fights immaculately. The whole thing is just, it pushes incredulity to quite a degree. Yeah. And besides the like ethnicities of the characters playing other characters, and then it's all done for camp and over the top, and in that way, like if you just buy into it, it's just silly fun. My wife is also my wife and I are big Clancy Brown fans. He plays the barbarian bad guy in this.
He plays it really well.
He's a phenomenal actor. He's been in The Shawshank Redemption. He was the policeman, the cruel guard at the prison, the main guard.
He does a lot of voice acting now, doesn't he, for animation?
Yeah. And my favorite performance I have to mention every time I talk about him is in Dead Man Walking. He plays the police officer who pulls Susan Sarandon's nun over because she's not paying attention to the road and speeding, and he pulls her over for speeding. And when he notices she's a nun, when he gets her license, he says, I pulled over an IRS agent one year. I got an audit. And he's like, I'm going to let you go with just a warning. He's got one scene in that movie, and it's such a perfect scene. Clearly, he made friends with Tim Robbins in Shawshank and then appeared in his directorial debut or whatever. But like, he's a great actor. And as that demon sort of barbarian character that is like hunting the immortals, I think he steals the movie for me. From Connery and from Lambert, like Clancy Brown as the bad guy is my favorite part. Yeah, I love his mask in the old Highlander days. I love his giant freaking sword. I will say the sword fighting skills of the actors is piss poor. Like, it's really bad. There are definitely times when I'm looking at them going like, you can see that they're actors. They're just not swordsmen. Versus somebody like Viggo Mortensen in Lord of the Rings clearly spent a crap ton of time learning to be a swordsman. And like, it showed in the movies. So I did enjoy it.
I feel like every time I see Highlander or have a chance to see Highlander, I just say, I'm just going to watch Conan. I'll watch Conan the Barbarian. I think I don't know. I don't have that same. I think I'm just with Greg. Just don't have that same nostalgic.
But here's the thing. I think it comes down to nostalgia. I think for this movie, and if someone says that they love a movie because of nostalgia, I will never rip on them for that.
No, yeah, you can't.
Nostalgia is a drug. Like, I mean, I get it. There are, I will always have a special place in my heart for Batman Forever because that was my first movie I saw, a Batman movie in the theater. Is it the best one? No. But will I say it's one of those like movies? Yes, like that I love. And I think Highlander if people want to say it taps into the nostalgia and that makes it a good movie for them, fine. But if you want to come at me and actually say it's a good movie or a great movie or his best movie, like on an actual movie scale, that's where I say you're blinded by your nostalgia glasses. That's where I'm at a little bit. And as long if we can get to that page, I'm okay with that. Otherwise, if we're not,
I'm not claiming it's in. I wouldn't even put it in top 5 Connery for me, because I would stack that with a bunch of Bond films and a couple of films that we haven't even gotten to yet, that I think are iconic. And of course, Untouchables would probably be. I would probably put Untouchables ahead of the Bond films in the end, just for rewatchability for me personally, and all, you know, you throw in Andy Garcia, Robert De Niro, and Costner, and I'm like, okay, well, we're done at that point. You know, it hits all the buckets. We need to talk about 2 films. I'm going to jump to Hunt for Red October because it's not gotten a lot of chat, and I saw it in Vince McLean's comment here, Hunt for Red October, and I want to talk about one thing that has to come up when we're talking about Hunt for Red October, which is Connery's accent. He's one of those actors that really was never able to shed his accent believably and just rolled with it. His whole career, he was just like, this is me, this is my accent, I'm just going to play the part and screw it, right? But I here's what I want to say about Hunt for Red October and what I love about it and John McTiernan's director choices. So the opening, I don't know, quarter, fifth of the movie, Connery speaks Russian. He speaks in Russian. Everybody speaks in Russian. And then they have this amazing bit when Sam Neill is reading Shakespeare, I believe. And the camera zooms in on Sam Neill's mouth. And then when it backs away, he starts speaking in English. And it's the King's English. It's British English. And he speaks in his accent. And the rest of the actors on the boat all of a sudden speak in all their British accents. And Connery's Scottish accent just blends in with the rest of the group. I think it's one of the best choices that the director could have made, because now it made it so that we're not worrying about him not having a Russian accent. It made it so that they were all Brits basically on the boat, that British accents were Russian accents for the central portion of the film. And then once the Americans get on board the boat, the accents flip back to the way they were at the beginning of the film, where they're all now speaking in Russian again. I know the accent thing bugs people with Connery movies a ton, but I think John McTiernan showed you can artistically utilize it. And for me, it worked beautifully. Yeah. So, Greg, what are your thoughts on Red October or Connery's accent or whatever?
Well, I think it was a well done on the accent. It's very simple of, like, you know, as readers of comic books, right? You see it all the time, and you know, firepower that's being taken place in, you know, an Asian country, that they kind of put those kind of like footnotes and they're like, okay, this is why they're all speaking in English. You can kind of understand it. And without doing it like that, I think they do a beautiful way, like you said, of kind of like bringing it in, because separate yourself from that and just look at Connery as being the acting of Connery is fantastic.
Mike, any thoughts on, Hunt for Red October?
Hunt for Red October is probably the best Jack Ryan film that's not a Jack Ryan film. It's a Sean Connery film, right? And I mean, like I said, I mean, just he's not supposed to be the focal point of the movie, yet he commands the screen and he's able to make everybody else in that movie better. The accent. I do agree with you, John. That the what's the director's name again?
John McTiernan. He did Die Hard and a bunch of other really great.
Yeah, that's right. His decision to do that with the accents was not only a good way to help out with, you know, Sean Connery's accent, but it was just brilliant in general for the movie. I mean, the way that he portrayed that Russian captain, it was incredible. That was easily probably my number outside of some Bond films. Like I know you said you ranked the Bond films as like individual. I would just say like Untouchables, then Bond. I just clumped them all together as just Bond, and then Hunt for Red October, Indiana Jones, something like that. So somewhere around there, right?
Sure.
But yeah, it was very, very good. Very, very good.
Well, I mean, to Greg's point too, or to your point, Mike, too, like Alec Baldwin is the main character, and he's not on the cover. It's just it's Connery. Connery's face gets front and center on this. Connery's face gets top billing, or Connery's name gets top billing. Baldwin's way down here.
Well, it's the same type of thing like Batman, right? Like originally the '89 Batman, it was Jack Nicholson, like was the top bill over Michael Keaton. And Jack Nicholson, no, Michael Keaton, like it's not to that extreme of this, but he gets the top bill.
And for me, like I'm a Clancy fan, and I feel like this movie in general is very true to his style of like there's not one character that's the lead. It's like this huge ensemble thing where you got Scott Glenn doing his thing, and you got James Earl Jones doing his thing, and you've got all these great actors kind of doing their part. And so for me, I adore this movie. I think it's really tightly wound thriller, very entertaining, and Connery is perfect as this Russian sub-captain who you could fear, but then when you realize the truth of what his intent is, you realize he's not the villain of the film, and that's kind of there's some great little twists in there for him if you don't know it.
Do you rank it better than Sum of All Fears as your favorite Clancy?
I would, here's the reality. Like, I have really not hated a Clancy film. I have not just like walked out of one and just said this movie's trash. But I'm a big Patriot Games Harrison Ford fan. I think that movie is so tightly that movie's like a nervous pit in your stomach. And they fixed even the shitty ending in the book. I think they made a better ending in the movie than the book had, in my opinion. Like I think they actually fixed the ending and gave us an exciting ending with Harrison Ford having to throw down. And they even made staring at a monitor with like heat vision interesting and exciting. Like holy crap! Like I was like on the edge of my seat watching little dots move on a screen, and you're like, well, why am I entertained by this? It's amazing.
So you like Patriot Games more than Clear and Present Danger?
Definitely. I think the problem I had with Clear and Present Danger is they played so loose and fast with that story. They lost track of what they were trying to do. And they told a totally different movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they kind of butchered what I loved about that book. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I certainly really enjoyed it. And there's some amazing action sequences, but Jack Ryan should not be in the field as an action hero. That's not where I know Harrison Ford belongs there, but Jack Ryan doesn't in that sense for me.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. There's two left. Obviously the chat's talking. They want to hear Last Crusade. So we got to get to some Indiana Jones love here. Obviously this is his least action role because he's not the one throwing the punches and he's not the one shooting the guns and fighting the Nazis. But how nicely, I mean, I can't think of a better, I think Steven Spielberg said something like, who else could be Indiana Jones's dad except James Bond, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the funny thing is that he played his dad, but there's only like a 10-year age difference or something like that.
Right.
But, Sean Connery as Dr. Jones Sr. is, I mean, it's perfect in every sense of the way. He may not be throwing punches, but he can sure as hell get an umbrella ready and deploy his pigeons tactically in order to evade a Nazi plane. So,
right. Yeah, I just checked. 12-year age difference. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
If you would have told me that, I would not have believed it. I honestly would not have believed it. It's one of those roles though where it makes it's probably one of his most comedic roles in my opinion, which is surprising, and it works so well. I think if they tried to make him like action-y in any capacity of that movie, it wouldn't have worked. But to be his role in the movie of just kind of the estranged father-son relationship that they have, like that scene when they're on the Zeppelin and Indy's like talking, he's like, I just want you to talk to me. And Sean Connery's just like, okay, let's talk. What do you want to talk about? And Harrison Ford's like,
what are you complaining about?
And he's like, all right, now let's get to the plan. Let's talk about what we need to do. Like, it's just so funny. And
no, the funniest part was when he goes, "Oh, how did you know she was a Nazi?" Well, she talks in her sleep. Well, I didn't trust her. Why did you?
Yeah. And you buy it. You buy that a woman would be attracted to both of them. You buy that they have the same sort of charisma and intelligence and ability, even if one of them is all professor and one of them is maybe a little bit of professor, but mostly is, a adventurer at his core.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting. Like, now that I know there's it's only like a 12-year age difference. Like, now they have no problem with John calling me Junior. Like, all right, Junior, let's go. What are we talking about?
Yeah. See, he plays the role of the dad so well. So well.
Yeah. And I think, who else could legitimately slap Harrison Ford in the face and call him out for blasphemy except for Sean Connery? Like, what other actor could legitimately pull that off and have Harrison be like, sorry, yes, sir.
So
like that.
Let me ask, he was so great in that role. Is that I wouldn't even be mad at somebody if they said that, oh, I love that Indiana Jones movie, the Sean Connery one. The Sean Connery Indiana Jones movie, as opposed to Harrison Ford's top bill in there. Like, man, both of them are neck and neck, very much that movie.
Yes and no. I agree with you that he does make it, but at that stage of the movie, at that stage of our time, this is our third Indiana Jones movie. Yeah. And so you have Harrison Ford. I mean, it's quintessential. You see Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. Not to detract from, because Sean Connery is fantastic in it, but he also doesn't come in till about halfway through the movie too. So there's that plays into it when they find it. So I wouldn't, if someone says, I would push back a little bit if they're like, oh, that Indiana Jones movie were Sean Connery, technically Sean Connery was in the first 5 minutes. Not to take away anything from it.
He says,
yeah, that's why I said he was technically in the very first movie, first 5 minutes there.
In Greek.
Yeah,
in Greek.
Yeah, and it's so but you see the dynamic, you see that relationship with when they're in the trying to find the Grail at the end, and Indy's trying to rush, and those kind of moments where Indy's figuring. I thought it was brilliant how they did it, of letting Indiana figure it out.
Yeah,
but also showing that Sean Connery's kind of figuring it out while he's doing it from there, and I think that's a brilliant because I felt like if they were doing it together, it would take away from the brilliance of the intelligence of Indiana Jones' character a little bit. That he only solved it because his dad did it, but it was a way to display that they are both intellectual, equals there. So I thought that was really well done with that. And I
think sometimes with all the adventuring, Indiana Jones's professorship, time in a classroom gets lost. I mean, the second film, he's really never in a classroom. He's never teaching. I think that having father as a professor pretty much strictly through the whole film, it just highlights that part of Indy a little bit more, I think. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's perfect casting in that movie. I think they use him beautifully. I think, so I was ecstatic by the whole thing. Patrick Wall, we never got to Bridge Too Far. We're about to probably skip it. I don't know if these guys have seen that film.
I haven't.
So if anyone in the chat hasn't seen it, A Bridge Too Far is basically in the era when Hollywood was making these 3-hour war film epics. And this was a film about a specific operation in Europe during World War II when the Allies tried to capture a whole group of bridges in and around Europe at the same time and make sure that the Nazis didn't blow them up so that the troops would have ways to get their supply lines through. And it was a very audacious and risky operation that involved parachuting. It involved, the Scots and the Brits and the Americans all working together. And they made this sort of epic film without any main character. And Connery he leads a group of Scottish militia. You've got Robert Redford's in it. It's just a huge cast.
Gene Hackman.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I was just talking Gene Hackman. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the cast is huge for Bridge Too Far. There's a ton of people. If I go to the cast here, let me see: James Caan, Michael Caine, Elliot Gould, Gene Hackman, Anthony Hopkins, Ryan O'Neal, Robert Redford, Denholm Elliott. It's the cast is stacked. Lots of great actors playing small parts because there's no major lead. John Ratzenberger, and those are the people on the American side, obviously. Laurence Olivier, Richard Attenborough, and the idea is that they're just trying to capture how challenging that act was to capture all these bridges. If there was a failure, it would be very challenging to have the assault on Germany be successful. And so it was a really interesting film that kind of captures all these different troops working together. Very sort of Black Hawk Down-esque, if you like that film, where you have all these sort of separate stories all coming together to kind of show this one event and how it was working. So yeah, really good film. If you get a chance to see it, it's really long. Like I said, it's like 2 and 45 minutes. Like it's almost a 3-hour movie. So you need to make time for it. But the production value and the acting, it's just on another level. The last movie I wanted to make sure we had time for before we maybe do a last round is The Rock. And it's right over there, over Bearded's shoulder. And I just watched it again today. I'm only borrowing your Humvee. You get Michael Bay and Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. It's just a popcorn movie. It's like the perfect popcorn movie for me. I really enjoy this movie. I'm not a Michael Bay fan, but this is like the best Michael Bay you can probably get for me.
Well, yeah.
You're the only good Michael Bay you'll ever get from me, I think. Sorry.
See, can we say there's a difference between good and entertaining?
Sure.
Because I will say there's entertaining Michael Bay movies. I'm not going to say they're good.
Can you give me a for instance?
I find the Transformer movies
can't.
entertaining.
Huh?
I can. Transformer movies are entertaining. I'm not going to say they're good. The first one, at least.
Okay.
I'm going to say I enjoy Bad Boys and I can enjoy Armageddon, but The Rock is
Armageddon,
Michael Bay's best movie. It's just Michael Bay's best movie is The Rock.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Hands down. But even
I forgot Michael Bay did Armageddon. I did like Armageddon.
I liked Armageddon. That was going to be my next one after Transformer. So,
okay.
I think you have to
always whine about their best.
Your best.
This morning I did that. I quoted that scene, and Bearded's like, "That's not the line." I was like, "My daughters are sitting right next to me. I'm not going to say that."
I appreciated that.
The prom queen.
I felt like I still had to call you out on it.
It was hilarious. It was perfect. Of course, it would have to be Greg that calls me out on that.
It's one of those that you have to suspend. You watched it recently, Mike. I know you are very adamant. Someone's got to fill me in though, because this is where I suspend my disbelief and I enjoy it a lot. But him figuring out how to get through in the very beginning of the movie through the rock, where he has to roll and tumble through the fires and thing, and then he has to do that so he can go to open up the door. How does he know that then? If he had to do that, there shouldn't be a door. Then he could have just walked out the door to get out of that.
Well, it was locked on their side. It was a one-sided lock. He had to go through to get to the other side to undo the lock.
Right. But when he breaks out, but when he knows it because he didn't when he broke out. That's how he knows. He memorized those things. But if he didn't when he broke out, he's already inside. He should be able to open up the door from the inside like he does.
Why did he need to go through there to get out? Open from his side.
Didn't they say that there was something that he needed to get? So
I have a logical answer for it.
That's what I want to ask. I was so confused.
Here's the logical answer. Well, obviously, he had to learn it to get out, which means that it was locked on that side, right? Now, the guys take over Alcatraz. They probably relocked the door the other direction. They flipped the lock or they barricaded it in some other direction. So now he's got to go back the opposite way. Here's the bigger problem with that scene, though, for me. That scene, I can't watch that scene without thinking of Galaxy Quest. There's a moment in Galaxy Quest when Sigourney Weaver is trying to make her way through the ship, and she comes to where there's like the mashers and there's the flame, and she's like, what is the point of this? Why is this in the middle of our spaceship? Why do I have to go through this? And the whole time I'm thinking, what is Alcatraz possibly pumping and doing that they need spitting flame and giant spinning wheels? What function does that serve in Alcatraz?
It serves as a very climactic part of the movie. That's the only. And like Alcatraz at this point is closed too, so it's like there's no one like living there.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
It's just a really big furnace. It's just a big furnace. That's all it is.
It's exactly
heater. Yeah.
But every furnace I know has giant exhausts of just like explosive flame and turning wheels.
It's Michael Bay. He needs random flames everywhere. That's the
I
only
don't
way to
disagree.
work.
Like,
And gears.
I remember rewatching that, and I'm like,
It's the worst scene in the movie.
I started my Sean Connery retrospective, like after he passed away, which kind of helped. Was why John and I kind of started. So I watched it a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, why though? Why does this happen? But throughout that, then man, like his just presence. He is a action star in there without having to be an action star. Like, I think they say what you will about Michael Bay, but I think whatever it took to get it set to that stage, whether it was all Connery or whether it was direction, and say like, how can we make you look like an action star without, but representing that you're old and you're not going to go ham on these fit Marines, like, Yeah.
So for me, like the movie's beautiful escapism. I think Nicolas Cage is hilarious. I think he's got some amazing lines. It was like when I used to really like Nicolas Cage, and I could watch Honeymoon in Vegas, and I thought it was the funniest freaking movie ever. And it's perfect, Nicolas Cage, and he balances Connery's like straightforward attitude. And the two of them make a wonderful pair. I think that's what makes the movie work. On top of which, they've got a phenomenal supporting cast all around, but specifically those Marines with Ed Harris. You on Green Mile, you guys were talking about David Morrissey, and he's phenomenal as the second in command under Ed Harris in this movie as well. So many great little performances. But for me, the movie. Did I say it right? Is it David?
Morse, I think.
Morse. David Morse. David Morse, yeah. But the movie, it hinges on Nick Cage and Connery's chemistry and the balance of the two of them, whether they're disarming nukes or whatever, the VX gas or whatever. And when he's like screaming at Connery, like, don't do that. And Connery's like, oh my God, I'm going to blow something up. The balance between the two of them slays me. And I think they both make that movie work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it's just so it's because it balances out. Nicolas Cage is like his over the top sometimes, but Ed Harris is brilliant in it. I think, he's still, you have to have it a little bit Nicolas Cage over the top there. It's Nicolas Cage, and you got to have the cheesy Michael Bay. Like, you like music? Ellen John? Man, you say what you will, but I still get emotional. Like, not teary-eyed, but like hit me in the feels. Like when he just busts out the green flames, and they're like, "We got green flames." I'm like, "Oh, yeah!" Like, because I revert back to like my 1990, 7 as a kid, going like, "Why is my mom letting me watch this movie?" But
well, I think Ed Harris. You mentioned Ed Harris being this like I think he's perfect in that part. But like, I think what makes the part work is that he's a villain that you sympathize with.
Right.
The whole opening bit when he's thinking over all the like soldiers he's lost, and he goes to his wife's grave and leaves the Medal of Honor and explains that he's basically waited for his wife to die before he does this because he couldn't do it while she was still alive and put her through this. he's an amazing character. And even I don't even want to call it a twist at the end, because you knew he was never going to actually nuke or blow up the city. His reveal at the end of his true fact that he was bluffing the whole time is perfect. And you can see that he is on Connery, Michael Biehn, and Nick Cage's side the whole movie. He's just really hoping he won't be put to play. He won't be forced to play his cards.
Yeah. It is. It's Sean Connery. Like, I mean, it's quintessential. Like, it's one of my favorite Sean Connery movies because it's action packed. It's fun. The dynamic, the relationship between them, when the guy's legs twitching, and he's like, "Is that normal?
Is that normal? What?
Like, you want me to kill him again? Like, what do you want me to do?"
Yeah, the feet thing.
Maybe I'm losing myself. Oh, man, that's good.
Simply more enjoyable than my average day. Reading philosophy, avoiding gang rape in the washrooms. Well, it's less of a problem these days. Maybe I'm losing my sex appeal. Nailed it. So good.
You just done the I wish you would have done this entire episode in his voice. Never break character.
I did in college. I had a crappy college radio show, and I used to do segment like all the advertising in Connery. That was like my shtick. My dad loved it. My dad would listen at work, and he's like, "Come in, my son's going to do Connery. You got to hear this." It's not particularly amazing, but for him, it was like it meant something to him. Okay, so we got to wrap this up. We're at 1 hour, 21 minutes. Did we miss a movie that you want to make sure we say something about, or do you feel like we did enough?
Let's have that one.
I know you've got Entrapment right above your head there.
I do like Entrapment. Again, it's another one. Like, it's not a great movie, but it's one that I remember. Catherine Zeta-Jones.
You remember her butt? That's basically what I remember about that movie.
Where they do the laser beam, and he's like,
"Oh, I remember."
Who's the guy who's talking to Sean Connery there? He's like,
I don't even care.
You're focused on the job here, right?
All I know is the cinematographer who was able to light both of her butt cheeks independently in that shot. Like that takes serious skill in cinematography. I'm just gonna say.
And don't forget, they had that little dance, that little dance with the laser beams too. I love that.
Yeah,
lucky bastard.
It's
Rising Sun.
It's with Wesley Snipes. It's where there's a murder in John's favorite.
Oh yeah. It's when he's like fascinated with the. He's like trying to solve the murder of like a prostitute or something.
Japanese businessman. Yeah.
Yep. And it's like Japanese diplomats or something. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's based on a Michael Crichton novel. The guy who wrote Jurassic Park wrote Rising Sun, and it was really just his movie about how he thought Japanese business was taking over America and it was going to ruin American business. He was way ahead of the curve on that comment on that idea, and he wrote the role for Connery. The name of the character is John Connors, and he straight up says, "I wrote the role of this character for Sean Connery." And it was amazing that they got Connery to do it. The problem was he wrote such a bland partner for John Connors that they didn't have a character for it. And what they did was they hired Wesley Snipes, and then they completely rewrote the character to be this street cop. And they totally changed the tone of the entire story.
And it doesn't work as well.
And it just doesn't work. Yeah, it just doesn't work. The reality is Michael Crichton only wrote one interesting cop in the partnership. And the other character who basically tells the story is very bland. He's the audience. He's like trying to keep up with the mystery. And John Connors is always a step ahead of him. And as a result, they couldn't make an interesting movie out of it without completely rewriting that character. And it does. The movie suffers because of it.
Right. I don't think I've seen it.
It's on Stars, I think, right now.
Yep.
It's not a horrible movie. I just wish they had made a better version of the book. If they had taken the book and improved it a little bit, they could have made a really cool movie. It's just a good detective mystery kind of thing.
I mean, it's one that if you put it on, I'm not going to be upset about it.
Stop.
Are we though?
I will take the anal rapists.
Trying to see if we missed anything.
I
will have to say,
Okay.
I had a bunch of Dragonheart figures when I was a kid because of I had the Draco because he's the voice of a dragon. I mean,
He's
we got a movie with Dennis Quaid as a dragon slayer. Who can we get the voice of the dragon? Sean Connery. Perfect.
Heck yeah.
That's all I need to say about that.
Pop quiz. What is Sean Connery's full name? No looking, John.
I'm not looking.
I've got it already open. I didn't know it, so I didn't know it.
I don't know it either.
Thomas Sean Connery. Sean's his middle name.
The only one I usually remember is, what is Michael Keaton's real name? It's Michael Douglas. But that name was already taken, so he went by his middle name, Michael Keaton.
Interesting.
So Patrick mentioned Name of the Rose. That's one I wanted to watch because people have talked about. I didn't get to watch that. Super wanted to watch that. I did watch what is it, The Wind and the Lion. That's where he kidnaps Candace Bergman.
Okay. Isn't that one in the Middle East or something?
Yep. And it kind of right around the time Teddy Roosevelt's a president. Whoever played Teddy Roosevelt does a really good job. But yeah, I wanted to watch the Name of the Rose. It's kind of that's the one where I believe it's like Catholic monastery kind of thing. Like,
okay,
that there's a murder there, and Sean Connery.
I saw that one. We didn't mention Murder on the Orient Express.
Right.
He was in the original version of that, but it's kind of an ensemble where he has just one of the many parts in that.
Yeah, but if Mike can bring up Robin Hood because of his 2 seconds, you can bring up Murder
or Time Bandits. Hashtag Time Bandits. I will also mention, it got mentioned at the very beginning, but I am a fan of Robin and Marian, the film he did where he played an older Robin Hood at the end of his life. I always felt like that was a really great film and I always viewed that as the real true ending to the life of Robin Hood. Maybe it's just because I liked Audrey Hepburn and the two of them together, like, come on, it's perfect casting. And the film is not as good as the two of them. I kind of feel like the two of them, when they have scenes together, are the top-notch stuff. But I do really love that one.
This is interesting. I'm looking at random facts. He wore a toupee in all the James Bond movies. He started losing his hair at age 17.
He lost his hair super early.
Wow.
I was not aware that it was that early, but I do know that he lost his hair. He wears a toupee in most movies, but I didn't realize it was that early.
During the filming of Never Say Never Again, he was taking martial arts lessons and in the process angered the instructor, who in turn broke his wrist. He stayed with the broken wrist for a number of years, thinking it was only minor pain. The instructor was Steven Seagal.
That's hilarious.
That's funny. He was also the oldest. He was also the oldest person to be named the sexiest man alive on People magazine.
I did know that. Yeah, I did know that. Okay,
good for him.
Yes, you missed all the Highlander hot takes, brother. I'm the only one on the panel. So you can back up this for the hot takes later because we're gonna say goodnight. But Downright Nerdy Podcast, I have linked their channel down below. You should definitely check them out. Michael and Riley are going to be up and running again soon, dropping their podcast at some point. You're going to want to be there for it. I promise you.
Thank you.
Huge thanks for joining us for this Connery
retrospective. Thank you guys so much for inviting me. It's an honor and a pleasure as always. And I hope that this is not going to be the last time. So thank you guys. Definitely. Really appreciate it. I had a great time.
And if you don't know, every Saturday he's doing Downright Annoyed with movies. They just did The Green Mile, dropped today. What are you guys doing next week?
So next week we're doing a movie called, I forget, but I just watched it right before this, and it was actually pretty good. Hold, please.
I'm trying to remember what it was too.
Say hi to our latest member, our newest member in the chat.
Pop is here. My dad's stopping by to say hi. Look at that mustache in that picture, by the way.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
A year ago, I was sporting a sweet mustache.
I'm surprised you didn't hop on and tell everyone that you were doing your Connery voice.
Right. I was doing my Connery voice earlier, Dad. I was telling them about the days when I did Connery on the college radio and you would tune in. So I've been doing Connery a bunch tonight. Bearded Comic Bro, you've been dropping content a ton. Mrs. Bearded, apparently you've got a channel. I didn't realize. Mrs. Bearded has been hilarious and all over the place, dropping hilarity. What do you got coming up? What's the next Mrs. Can you guess what's going on?
So we were gonna drop one on Friday, but it just life, quarantine, kids. We were like, no, we're not gonna rush. So you got another unboxing. Monday I'm doing dropping episode 2 of my amalgam series that I'm going through. So we're gonna look at basically books 2 and 3, and actually not 2 and 3, just books 2. A little bit of 1, but we talked about that last time. Wednesday, I'm dropping my interview I did with Chris Condon, who is the writer of That Texas Blood. So if you are a fan of that series, it's a fun interview, kind of getting behind the scenes. And then Friday we'll be dropping hopefully another name that character. I can't tell you what because she's the one that. Well, no, I just don't know because she's quizzing me on that one. And I can't tell you what then the next one is because we haven't shot them officially, but I know what it is and it's going to be fun. But if she watches somehow or someone messages her, it's going to ruin it. So,
but if you missed the last one of those, it was Dick Tracy. Charlie was a huge fan. We were listening in the car. So you got to catch up on that one if you're a Dick Tracy fan at all. But it's just hilarious to see the quizzing for the Dick Tracy characters because I forgot somehow I've just forgot all the crazy characters in that universe.
Yeah, and then I'll be on Lamer Frame, and she was on it last week with us, and just ripping on Old Wolf, so that's always a good time.
Okay, so Michael, what was the movie?
Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. I had never seen it, never even heard of it. It's kind of a mockumentary horror / comedy, and it's 90 minutes. It's free on Amazon Prime. We're going to be talking about it on Bored and Annoyed's channel next Saturday. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Spoiler alert. Not bad.
Patrick Wilson, where did you get that Old Wolf comic spectacular? You're talking about this right here. That's a graded 2.5 cream to off-white pages Old Wolf. That came to me today, and I'm very lucky to have it. But you can get your own too if you orders fast. They're running out.
They're the next yarn. It's in the next Yarn Man.
More valuable. So for the rest of November and December, Greg and I are going to be going and talking about some of these great actors and filmmakers we've lost in 2020. Our list of 3 that we're definitely going to be covering includes Ian Holm, Joel Schumacher, and Kirk Douglas. So we'll definitely be talking about those 3 supremely talented individuals and their films. So if you're interested in joining us for an Ian Holm, a Joel Schumacher, or a Kirk Douglas look back, please hit us up.
Yeah,
we're going to be scattering some breaks in between now and all those videos because of holidays and what have you. So just let us know. We haven't picked what we're doing next week, if we're even going to be on next week. But we'll try to let you know as soon as possible when we find out those days. So hit us up, leave a comment, or find us on Instagram. Let us know you want to join us if you want to be around for one of those. We're going to bounce out of here and hope to see you all again here soon. Bye.